And that's something very, very important. Now, doesn't mean you have to be Buddhist and get Buddhist initiations and all of this. For example, someone who is a Christian and who wants to develop and wants to be a yogin, a Christian yogi, and they're looking into their mind, then what they would want to do is they would want to like dedicate their understandings through lucid dreaming to Christ, make sure they have the guide of Saint so-and-so, the Blessed Mother would come to them, etc., the different angels and saints, and so that they would have help, because they're around too, those people in their subtle being. And they would seek their help and work under their guidance. It's very important. The Buddhists would be initiated into Vajrayogini or Manjushri or something like that, Avalokiteshvara, to get them to help out in that situation. And it is very, very, I think, very important. So the stuff that people have done, like in labs or, the sort of lucid dreaming weekends that people do, is all good, I think. It's very necessary. It's a good corrective to materialism, but I hope the people who teach them, I haven't been to one, but I hope you are very clear about that it involves being part of the larger work on the self. And on self-realization, if you will, or self-creation, or self-transcendence, and all of that self-exploration, that is required. Or it could be just a kind of, it sort of would be like they always say, if you do more meditating, you begin to develop powers like clairvoyances and things like that. And if you're not aware that those could be very, very distracting, and could then lead to greater worldliness in a way, and greater attachment and greater paranoia, then you'll get sidetracked on the real path. So that you're not supposed to get involved with them. I mean, if you can't control your own mind, don't understand it, then what good does it do to read many other people's uncontrolled and misunderstood mind? Do you know what I mean? It's not good for you, and it naturally happens when you naturally can get sidetracked into these things. So the lucid dreaming, there should be many caveats taught with people who begin to practice the lucid dreaming. Also, of course, to be instructed by someone who is an adept about it, of course, makes it a lot easier to learn about it. They say.
The Course in Miracles is like.
That's a wonderful thing. Yes.
Yeah, but it kind of.
Do they use lucid dreaming? I don't really know it very well. I looked into it. Came from Columbia University.
Yeah, it's very similar to what you're saying, though.
Yeah, I've been told that many times, and I've looked a little bit at it. I know Marianne, and I like her work very much. But I somehow, being still busy as I have been, I will take a retreat and really look more carefully at it, because everyone keeps telling me how it's very, very similar.
It's similar,
so
but you could fall into these traps through it, like you're saying.
They must warn against that. That's good.
Yeah.
I hope.
I don't know if they do.
Oh.
I'm not quite sure they do.
Oh, I see. Well, I can't say because I didn't look at them. But I've been told it's very good, though.
Very good.
And what I like about it is, Jesus articulates himself there in such a way as to break one free from this rigid, authoritarian, suppressive ways in which Christianity is interpreted by the institutions that are trying to use Jesus' teaching to increase market share, which is really, really, really contrary to what he wanted, I think. Well, I don't think anything brings us a sense of hope from outside. So hope is something we have to find from inside. And really, hope is something we can't afford to be without, actually. And so I think we have to cultivate the half-full rather than the half-empty attitude. Now, people get into sort of medicalizing depression, and they talk about clinical, and you have to take Prozac and all of that. But I think a lot of that is marketing. And although our culture is depressing because of its nihilism, and and the shattered family and the industrial lifestyle. I mean, so there could be a use sometimes, I think, for when meditation can't work at all, maybe a little modest medication is not bad. But becoming addicted to it and thinking that's the only thing or that's the only solution, that is very destructive. So I have noticed, this in a way relates to the last thing we mentioned, I have noticed that people who really are having physical hardship in their life, who are kind of up against it, who have to walk 2 miles to get water, and so on, they don't indulge in depression and hopelessness because they got to go get that water, and they actually have a certain energy to deal with what's immediately around them, and and sitting around wallowing in depression. The more power people actually have, where the water comes in by turning on a faucet, where there's a heater, they just buy the oil, where they can live in a high security compound and lock themselves out from other people and so on, they get more freaked out. And they feel more hopeless and powerless and disempowered who actually have power. It's very interesting. I noticed this most intensely when we did wonderful conference in New York, in San Francisco 10 years ago, called Peacemaking, the Power of Nonviolence, where we had a lot of inner city kids and inner city workers, maybe 1,000, 15, maybe 2,000 of those. And we had 3,000 middle class people in this conference with some Nobel Prize people and things like that. And it was the lower down you went on the scale socioeconomically, and the more up against it, right on the front lines, the more powerful and energetic the people were. Actually, although they were considered the powerless, actually. And the higher up you went, where they came in their BMWs from Marin County, this was in San Francisco, or wherever in the stuff, from the Palo Alto, whatever, they came zipping in, and then parked and nervously walked between beggars and were safe temporarily in a moment with a bunch of kids out of prison and things. The more powerless and weak they seemed on a certain personal level. And what to me, the slogan that came to me out of that conference, I remember, was "the meek shall inherit the earth." Now that you can go to an extreme with that. Of course, the people who are really starving or being like raped and shot and slaughtered in Darfur and things. I mean, you can go to where then it's like it is hopeless. You're going to get killed, or you're dying. Some diseases and things. I mean, you go to the extreme. But in a sort of level where you have to deal with reality and it's somewhat dealable with. Those people have a kind of hope and a kind of generosity and a kind of energy about dealing with what's the immediate practical situation. And then the people get up and then they indulge in some psychological sense of isolation and this and that. And in a way they justify their lack of working to help the ones worse off by the idea that it's hopeless. And this is very much, it's sort of a partner with the idea that nothing ultimately matters because you're ultimately nothing, which is a kind of excuse, one kind of excuse. And then the other kind of excuse is, well, we couldn't really, like I won't give this beggar $1 because I couldn't give all the beggars in the world $1. I'm not rich enough. I have a yoga where I give whoever asks me like something. And if I pull out $5, I'll give it sometimes. And I've annoyed colleagues walking with me sometimes who are trying to just get past the person, and then they think I'm showing off or something, and they get kind of bummed, and occasionally someone will say to me like, "You couldn't give $5 to everybody, And I said, everybody didn't ask me. I enjoy giving this one $5. Maybe he'll buy more crack, maybe he'll buy lunch. I hope he buys lunch, but I don't know. But at least I'm having the satisfaction of giving something somebody asked me. And I did. If I pulled out a 1, I wish I had pulled out a 1. I really could use the other 4, but I happened to pull out the 5, and then they get all grumbled out, So that's the excuse of, I can't do it. And I remember another thing. Some friend of mine told me once, who's a very, very big shot, in the media world, and went once to Washington and was such a big person that, I won't say the name, but it was such a big person that they could meet even the president, Clinton era. And having to do with not giving away or giving away the airwaves to all the big media monopolies, and wanting them to really pay for their use of the public airwaves by doing more educational programming and things like that, and having the Congress force them. And this guy told me that he spent months on this because he really devoted to children and schools and things, trying to make sure that the Congress wrote all that in, And he said the lower down he was in the civil service, talking to people in different offices, that's a good idea, it's like that, and we'll try to put something in. And then by the senator level, well, gee, I don't know, there's so many constituencies. And finally, up to the president, they were completely powerless. I can't deal with that, because of course they were completely worried about campaign contribution of the big monopolies, so they wouldn't do anything. So the higher he went in the hierarchy in the government, the weaker the people felt.